LaPenta. This is WICR.
Hello, Iona College. Welcome back to the Sports Vault. I'm your host with the most, Jersey Joe, coming with a rare Friday little appearance. Now, I normally can't come on Fridays. I actually have two big tests today, but you know what? I had a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about, and to be honest, I couldn't not come on the air and show my viewers one of my new favorite pickups, the Manchester City long sleeve 2014-15 home kit. Now, you might not be able to see this, the best quality on there, but I've got the gold 2014 last year's champ patch of the English Premier League. This is just a very nice jersey. I've got the matching jacket, the matching shorts, pretty much head to toe covered in Manchester City gear. I'll put this picture up later on Instagram and on Twitter, on Facebook. It'll be everywhere, but it feels good today, and hopefully it'll give me the boost. But man, what a night last night between studying, between the games. There were some huge games in the world of sports last night. The first one headlined by Oregon Ducks. The Oregon Ducks losing at home 31-24 to Arizona. Now, am I shocked at this? A little bit. I mean, look, I love Oregon. I'm a big fan of the program. They're so much fun to watch. The huge thing last night, though, is there were red flags for Oregon. I didn't think that they were going to come to effect and matter in this game, but there were red flags, and the main thing you see in this game was 3 big points. I mean, Oregon's offensive line, they were missing some starters last night, which definitely showed. But I think overall, Oregon's offensive line has really struggled this year. Marcus Mariota's been running for his life, and he's been making plays, but when the plays break down, I mean, he really doesn't have as much time as he's had in the past to really make plays, survey down the field. The offensive line is breaking down very quickly, and it's really giving him a hard time. And you know what? It's been a big problem. It was a big problem for them last night. I think that's a big problem for them and why they lost that game. Now, the next thing I see from them is defensively, they're just not very good. You saw last week against Washington State, they couldn't keep Washington State off the field. I mean, Washington State just moved the ball at will against them, and Oregon really hasn't been tested. I mean, aside from Michigan State, I mean, they beat a bunch of nobodies. So, I mean, their teams have not had a lot of success moving the ball against Oregon. So, that's always been something I've been a little bit worried about there. They're defensively, their offensive line 1 and 2, and then the last thing is their offense. I mean, look, Oregon's patented thing is their offensive, what they do on the offensive side of the ball. They're still putting up a lot of points. The thing that I worry about, though, with them is they've had a lot of stretches where they just can't get in rhythm. I mean, you saw it in the Michigan State game for a while. They couldn't get into rhythm. Last night, they had stretches where they just couldn't get into rhythm. Against Washington State, they had stretches where they just couldn't get the offense in rhythm. And I start to wonder, is Mark Helfrich really going to be the guy there? Now, I don't want to start putting everything out there to make the guy lose his job or anything. I'm not advocating that, but at the end of the day, you got to think sometimes, what are you doing with the program? When he took over, when Chip Kelly left, what are you doing with the talent when the big guy leaves? And I think a lot of times you see that when the big dog leaves, he takes a job somewhere else, someone else comes in. They have initial success very early because they still have a lot of the recruits. They still have a lot of the system in place from the last guy. And there's been some times where I watch Oregon, and sometimes I wonder, is Mark Helfrich... Now, I like Helfrich a lot. He's such a great guy, such a nice guy, and I root for him. I wish nothing but the best for him, but sometimes I wonder, and look, UCLA, Oregon, they still got a lot of promise left in the season, but definitely going to keep your eye on it, and it makes it interesting because you got UCLA who's still undefeated. They play Utah, and then I believe they play Oregon next week, so that sets up a pretty interesting matchup because if UCLA beats Utah this week, which is going to be a tough game, then you have Oregon against an undefeated UCLA team. That could be a huge game, so I'm definitely going to be looking forward to that one. Now let's go on to baseball tonight. Now last night we had some big games. The Baltimore Orioles winning 12-3 against the Detroit Tigers. It was funny because, for the most part in that game, you had Nelson Cruz who hit the 2-run home run early, and then the Tigers came right back, and it was a 3-2 ball game for almost the entire game. And then in the 8th inning, man, the Orioles just took it to them, and The reason I picked Baltimore to win this series is I just have no faith in the Tigers' bullpen. We know how good the Tigers' starting rotation is, but you've got to have a bullpen who can close it down. It was the crux for the Tigers last year, and I fear it's going to be the crux for the Tigers again this year, and that's why I'm going with Baltimore, and it's always big getting that first win, so very big for Baltimore. And look, I'm rooting for Baltimore. I really am. I love Buck Showalter. You look at Baltimore where they were for most of my growing up. They were horrible. They were just awful. And the last couple of years, Bucks just transformed that baseball program, and they're just at a different level now. And so I'm pulling for Baltimore. I am. And you also had the Kansas City Royals. What a huge win, coming off that huge momentum-filled win on Wednesday. That was just a massive win in size and scope. And look, Kansas City, the Angels, we knew it was going to be a good series, and right now it's living up to it. But the game that I am most excited for is the LA Dodgers and the St. Louis Cardinals. Now you have Clayton Kershaw taking the mound against Adam Wainwright, two of the best arms in the National League. The best arm by far, Clayton Kershaw. Whenever you get to see him take the mound, it's a joy to watch, and this is just going to be a great matchup. Now, a lot of people I've seen, a lot of WICR people are taking the Cardinals, but I like the Dodgers in this series. I think Ryu I read the other day, he will be starting in Game 3. I don't know how his health is right now, how many innings he'll be able to go, but if you get anything out of him, you get 5 innings out of him. You can turn it over to the bullpen. I think you get 5 strong innings. You're in good shape, because I really like the Dodgers in games 1 and 2. If the Dodgers lose game 1, they're in big, big trouble, because they have to win the game with Clayton Kershaw on the mound. They just can't recover from that if they lose this first game. So this is going to be a very exciting ball game to watch. I know I will be tuned in. And then the other game tonight, the San Francisco Giants and the Washington Nationals. The greatest thing about the postseason is when you get great pitching matchups, and this is going to be a phenomenal pitching matchup here. Washington's arms against the Giants' arms. And I was listening to Mike Francesa the other day, and he made some really good points. The Giants have a lot of postseason big time players. A lot of these guys have been here before, and they've really showed up when they've had to. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this matchup, because I like the Nationals. In a couple of my pools, I picked the Nationals to win it all. So I really like the Nationals, but this is a really tough first series. The Nationals haven't been here in this spot. A lot of youth on that roster. San Fran's been there, done it. So they know what it takes and what they have to do to get back to the World Series, and it's a really tough draw. I just think that talent-wise, though, I like Washington a lot better, but it's going to be a great series. And then, like I keep alluding to, college football, I said it the other day, this is the best weekend by far. Already last night you saw, but just going over quickly, you have Florida State, Wake Forest, Ohio State, Maryland, Alabama, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, TCU. You got Texas A&M, Mississippi State, LSU, Auburn, Baylor, Texas, Utah, UCLA, Nebraska, Michigan State, Notre Dame, Stanford. There's something to watch at every second of the day tomorrow. Saturday is going to be a phenomenal day. If you're a soccer fan, I might even have to turn soccer off a little bit on Saturday, because there's just too much good college football to miss. Thankfully, all the good soccer games are mostly on Sunday before the football game. But talking about NFL football, last night, it was just embarrassing, frankly. The Thursday night games, there hasn't been one competitive game yet. Last night, the Packers won 42-10. There hasn't been one competitive game. I knew Tampa Bay and Atlanta. That game was a complete blowout. Last night was a complete blowout. The Giants and the Redskins the week before was a complete blowout in Giants' favor. The Ravens was a complete blowout when they played the Steelers. These games are not competitive, and I was talking to my dad about this, and I think he made a really good point. Teams don't have time to really fully prepare for these Thursday night games. You look at most of these matchups, what have they all been? Divisional matchups. The Giants and the Redskins, the Buccaneers and the Falcons. Last night, the Packers and the Vikings. And why does the NFL have to do this? Because at least when you play these teams, there's some familiarity with them. You don't have to really go as strenuous game planning, because you play these teams 2 times every single year. You know them a lot better than all the other teams in the NFL. And it's the road team is at such a big disadvantage in these games, and you're seeing that show up in the results. And look, I know the NFL, they always trying to get more exposure, put things on there, but the product is just not very good. it's not, to be honest. I mean, if you gave me the option last night, I'm watching the Oregon game. That was more competitive. This Packers game was over in the first quarter. It really was. I mean, there was no reason to watch this game over the baseball games or anything else. And right now, I don't know what the NFL is going to do about it, but it's something that we've been talking about last year. The Thursday night primetime games have not been very good, and I want to give my dad a lot of credit because that is a phenomenal point, and I think that's the root of it. Teams don't have enough time to prepare for the Thursday night games. The road team is at such a disadvantage, and we're seeing that in the scores. And it's definitely something that I'm thinking about, and I think is 100% spot on. But that is going to do it for my weekly spot. I'm very happy I could come on here Friday with my beautiful Manchester City jersey. I've got a lot of studying to do, so everybody, you all enjoy the games this weekend. I know that I am. I'm not moving from my couch this Saturday and Sunday, but I'm very excited for the games, and everybody have a phenomenal weekend. Thank you for tuning in.
What you say? Daddy, what's wrong? She whispered in my ear so sweet.